speaking of false equivalency and projection, it's become very clear. One thing we've learned from this impeachment trial is how much Republicans feel that they can just point the finger to Antifa or Black Lives Matter and think they've accomplished something. Think that it's in any way comparable to the insurrection that Donald Trump fomented against the democratic process in the United States, right? Just saying, well, look at all the Democrats who said nice things about Black Lives Matter, right? Or, supported the rioting, all of that stuff, right? Let's take into account, first of all, that blanketing the entire Black Lives Matter as riots is totally disingenuous. It's bad faith. Less than 10% of Black Lives demonstrations, according to a study across the nation, even had any violence or rioting, which some rioting just includes a few broken windows, some destroyed property, maybe not even any physical violence, okay? Totally ignores the amount of, so-called rioting that began after police started attacking people. But the other disingenuous thing here is that all kinds of Democrats were asking for the temperature to come down. Biden was saying looters should be held accountable and prosecuted and all of that. But it also ignores the very real difference between people who looted during maybe nowhere near a Black Lives Matter rally, maybe looted far off the other side of town because they knew they could take advantage of the fact that the majority of the police department was elsewhere in the city. Also ignoring the fact how many people are desperate, in need of support and money, and have nothing because of the pandemic and the depression that we're plummeting into, right, all year. And they're all of a sudden a organic groundswell movement. Black Lives Matter becomes the Democrats, all the Democrats. Pair that with Trump asking his supporters to come to Washington on January 6th, welcoming them, playing coy about it, teasing what was going to happen, and lying. It's all stop the steal is a lie. And Black Lives Matter was a real organic response to state violence against real people. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery. And even now the right is trying to lie and twist the truth about George Floyd. Tucker Carlson on his show, I'm not going to play it because it will make me throw up, was trying to say that George Floyd didn't die from being murdered by that police officer that tried to blame drugs in the system or whatever. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. But it got really disgusting in the impeachment trial. Listen to this question from Ted Cruz, the senator from Texas.
Kamala Harris said on national TV, they're not going to let up, and they should not. And she also raised money to bail out violent rioters. Using the manager's proposed standard, is there any coherent way for Donald Trump's words to be incitement and Kamala Harris's words not to be incitement?
Can you believe it?
Familiar. Thank you, Mr. President, Senators.
Jamie Raskin.
I'm not familiar with the statement that is being referred to with respect to the Vice President,
but just think about that for a second. Kamala Harris said some things about Black Lives Matter. Therefore, Trump can incite an insurrection against the United States. So that's the false equivalency that that they're drawing. But it's also just something they're going to go to. They are going to hammer on this lie that there was nothing but riots. The whole country was on fire all last summer. And it's just not true. And I know this in my own community from direct experience. I did coverage of the May 31st Black Lives Matter rally, the day after George Floyd was killed. We had one in Santa Maria. I can't remember if it was the day or 2 days after. But look at this. This is on my website, Political Pain. This is where I do original reporting of my own, politicalpayne.com. Go check it out, guys, if you want. Maybe leave a donation. It's up to you. But I have this video. This is also here on YouTube. But just check this out. This is some of the live coverage I did that day. And you could see we had hundreds of people marching in the streets. this earlier stuff. Like, here's... Never seen one this size in Santa Maria. It's hundreds of people blocking the street. You know, we hadn't really... I've never seen that many protesters blocking the street in this city before. They got to City Hall. Then they kind of blocked the intersection. You can see here. And this went on for a couple hours, and it was peaceful. You know, this is civil disobedience. You can block the traffic. I know it's violation of civil codes and all that stuff.
Not really seeing.
But you can see there, people were honking, showing support. Now, that went on for a few hours. Then after that, I mean, that was in the afternoon. It started like 1 or 2 or 12 or 1 p.m. Went on for hours. Then a few hours, it was still going on by like 5 or 6. And so I went and I filmed some of that. And there was like a few people in the street, in the center of the street. Here's a picture of that. So I did live reporting this. My wife did take this picture. Thank you, my love, for taking this picture. But you can see they stood in the center of the street. They held their signs. This period, like, there started being a little more concerning behavior. Like, a bunch of car people showed up and were doing donuts. There was a guy doing donuts like around this group of people. It was kind of harrowing. Like he might hit some of them. The people who did, violated traffic laws and all that, they were, the next day, some were arrested or some were issued citations. Several had their cars impounded. So they were held accountable. But then later, only hours and hours later, well into the night, we're talking like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, was there even any unrest? And I went out and I covered this too. And let's see here.
Poor man's neck with his knee.
Get to the
saying it's total.
I want to get to the point where I got out of the car. You can see kind of how crazy it got.
Yeah, so we are backing away.
So I just uploaded a whole live stream. You guys can check that out.
Here
it is. So you can see they set a fire.
Like cars are coming this way
in the center of the
and they set a fire in the middle of Broadway. So here we are. Wow.
Now, there's literally just a handful of people still with their signs. But I was there. I saw a bunch of these people who showed up with, they were doing burnouts with their cars. A guy does a wheelie in a second with his motorcycle. You had a lot of people who were not involved with the protests from early in the day. They just kind of showed up. It became a spectacle. Some people just came to watch, right?
It's a trip, man.
Yeah, so watch. There's a guy with a wheelie.
Never seen anything like this.
So that was a small fire, right? Later, just after I left, people did break some windows at the mall. One place was looted for just a moment. To call that a riot, it's just generally it's some unrest. There was property destruction. There was a little fire in the road that really didn't do much damage to the road. Just created a black mark there. I actually commended our local police department for having a measured response to this and not just running in and cracking people's heads open, because then there might have been a riot. There might have been enough people upset by that they would have done something. I mean, once the windows were broken at the mall, the cops were there within a minute, within seconds. And, it really, to characterize this as this crazy mob and to in any way connect it to Democratic lawmakers, disingenuous, to say the least. And guess what? Nobody who wants to make that argument, Santa Maria was out of control, there was a mob, there was unrest, there was a riot. They don't talk about the rally that came later, a few days later, which was organized by the local chapter of the NAACP, where all the marching was done on sidewalks. There was actually some help from the PD to guide it through crosswalks when crossing the street. And guess what? I remember specifically seeing the local chapter of the NAACP, LaWanda Lyons Pruitt, making sure people didn't stand in the center medians with their signs. They're kind of wagging her fingers and, hey, we're not doing that today. Wagging her finger at them and saying, come on, move along. We're doing it all by the book today. So that's what we saw in Santa Maria for these Black Lives Matter rallies. And that's just my city, which is a pretty big city here on the Central Coast. We have a lot of small towns, and we're one of the larger cities by population. So the fact that we just had a small crowd, they lit a fire, they did some stuff, well, according to the Republican Party, and the people arguing this in the impeachment trial after an insurrection, trying to disrupt the democratic process of the United States, they want to talk about Black Lives Matter. They want to somehow put this on Democrats, even though there were a bunch of Democrats who were very unhappy that this was all happening before the election, who were really trying to tamp it down and talk it down. Joe Biden was saying they will be held accountable. Anyone doing destruction of property, blah blah blah. Right? The centrist Democrats blamed Black Lives Matter for losses in the House. All of that. So the idea that it's even comparable, it's just more bad faith bullshit from the right, and that's what you're gonna get. That's what, and I'm sure it's what we're gonna hear for the next 2-4 years till the next elections. Is well, what about it? Black Lives Matter, and really it was Antifa that attacked the Capitol and all that stuff. So prepare yourself. And again, I was there. I saw this stuff happen, and the idea that city blocks were on fire. In my city, there weren't. There was that little brush fire in the center of the street, and oh geez, how scary. Really, they set off some fireworks. It's bad faith. It's really bad faith. So that's pretty much everything I have prepared tonight for you guys. I'll take some questions. Darkhood88 is chiming in. Darkhood88 said, "I did too." You did what? Tell me, Darkhood. What did you do, Darkhood? But this summer was in Santa Maria was fascinating. It was a lot of fun reporting on that. Being out there in the streets. The initial march, the big one, went right by my house. That's how I started going out and live streaming. I just ran outside and started filming, following it around. So, how many of y'all are still with me? Who's with me? Let me see here. I'll refresh. I'm having a little weirdness with the count. I have 7 people watching me on YouTube. Thank you so much. Somebody has liked as well recently. I appreciate it. Chime in. Throw me some questions. Don't have much time left to go, but I want to hear from y'all. If you're still watching in the chat. You commended the SMPD for Darkhead88 says they also commended the Santa Maria Police Department for the escalation tactics they use. Yeah, they once it was clear that people were hanging out in the intersection of Cook and Broadway, they set up farther down the roads, redirected traffic, told people, hey, there's a thing going on down there. They gave them their distance. That was the decision by the police chief. That's what I became aware of. And I think it was a good thing. They only broke it up. They actually came out, with some, call it riot gear, but they didn't launch tear gas at anybody. In San Luis Obispo, there was an investigation into the police department for shooting tear gas at mostly a bunch of, college kids, high school students. So yeah, the SMPD, I think, did a good job. They deserve a little, notice for that. Somebody else has liked. Thank you for liking. Guys, if you haven't liked and subscribed the page, please do it now.